Hi, welcome back to the channel. Got a special video today with a guest speaker who is my dad, Roger, and he is here visiting Mushroom Manor, and we're just having a cup of tea and we're going to have a discussion about my miraculous cure for multiple sclerosis, which is the carnivore diet. My dad happens to be a doctor. He's a retired doctor, a GP, which means general practitioner in the UK, and as I always say, most of my viewers are in the US, so I believe the term is family doctor.
Family doctor, yeah.
I think, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments. So anyway, I just thought it would be quite an interesting video to have, you know, a personal perspective, a family member, but also somebody who's medically trained, to see what he thinks. You want to say hello to everybody?
Hello, yeah, it's very nice of you. Very nice of you to invite me onto your channel, and it's very nice to be here in. I was going to say sunny Spain, but the sun's just going down a little bit now. But
well, it's been sunny all day.
A little bit cold, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful, and it's the first time I've been to this part of Spain to visit Rebecca, and what a turnout it's been. It's fantastic.
Should we start by maybe reminiscing about when I first went down with MS?
That's an unpleasant thing to do in a sense, isn't it, really? It is not happy memories.
No.
I don't recall how long ago it was, 8 years-ish?
Yeah, 8 years.
Something, 8 years.
2016, April 2016.
A horrible period, to be quite honest, to get a plaintive call from your daughter a couple of 100 miles away to say things are going very, very wrong. And for my medical brain as well as parental brain to start going through the possibilities.
Well, I didn't actually know that things were going horribly wrong. You knew and you didn't tell me, because you said to me, do you have double vision? I had dizziness and some kind of strange kind of flu-like dizziness, and I think my local doctors thought I had an ear infection. Do you remember?
I do, yeah.
Or was it elephantitis?
It wasn't elephantitis, no, but that will do very, very nicely.
No, what was it? It was something funny.
I don't know, otitis media or vestibulitis or something, I don't know. But I mean, this is absolutely classic.
It was something...
It was nothing to do with elephants. But the reality is that serious diseases do start in a small way.
Yeah, and you said to me, do you have double vision? And I said to you, no.
And then
I put down the phone and I was like, oh, well, actually, I suppose you could describe that as double vision. So I texted you and said, actually, I've got double vision. That's probably when you got worried.
It worried me immensely because it immediately took the stakes way up into something serious. And the two immediate differentials were either possibly thrombosis, something like that, but essentially MS or tumour. That was the differential at that point, and that, of course, is not something that you immediately say to your daughter when she's 200 miles away.
Well, no, and then you were trying to get me to go back to the doctor without telling me why it was so important.
Don't you think it'd be a good idea to go and see?
You know, you were slightly nervous, and you were like, "Can you please go back to the doctor?" And you never do that. You just. But I remember I was on campus at university, because this is when I was doing my PhD, and trying to get an appointment at my doctor's, and the receptionist, they changed the system and you had to say if it was an emergency or not, and I didn't know and you weren't telling me. So I said to me, and the receptionist had to decide whether it was an emergency, and she said, why don't you go to Specsavers, which is an optician's.
Which is not the most, I mean, it's not an unreasonable first step to take, but it's not the right step to take, in the fullness of time.
Well, I mean, not if you've got a brain tumour.
Not if you've got a brain tumour or multiple sclerosis, no.
But anyway, there happened to be an eye hospital exactly opposite campus.
Which was astonishing.
It was.
Fortuitous, yeah.
It was really a crazy coincidence. So, and one of my friends said, why don't you go there? And they had an A&E. So I went there and I said, I've got double vision. And they immediately put me through triage to the most important. I had a CT scan that night, and it was only at midnight when I was waiting for the result of that CT scan that it started to sink in. They're checking for a brain tumour. And I remember, then it came back clear, and the doctor came up at midnight and she told me, it's good news, it's not a tumour. And then she said, but no one told me the next thing to rule out was MS. So everybody knew, but no one was telling me. And then they were like, well, you have to, if you want, you can stay in as an inpatient for 5 days and have an MRI scan, or you could go out as an outpatient and put on the waiting list for 3 months or so. And I said, I'll stay in. And I remember it was funny because by this point I was realising this is possibly something serious, although I didn't know what. And I remember I said to you, coming to visit, I'm on ward 55. Do you
And
remember?
I said, are you sure you're on ward 55? Thinking of the double vision.
I'm like, are you actually making a joke at this time?
That's right.
Are you sure you're on ward 55?
Yeah, anyway.
So, so it was very crazy and it was very horrible. And then, of course, 5 days later, I had a MRI scan, and that confirmed that I had demyelination. So this was the beginning of a rough ride, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's a very rough ride, and I don't know how you describe it really, because it was a frightening time. You don't, doctor or not, your imagination is wild. You've got certain knowledge, you haven't got all the facts, you can't have them all. You've got a daughter with whom you're emotionally attached, makes it 10 times more difficult. But I seem to remember jumping in the car, coming on up, and doing what I could.
I mean, I think at the very beginning I felt quite brave about the whole thing, but it was as the symptoms set in after that. Yeah. And I had corrective glasses for months, waiting to see if that nerve in my eye would fix, because I couldn't drive. I had these corrective glasses, but it was when the symptoms set in. I carried on teaching at the university immediately. I had classes to teach, and I remember just carrying on. But as the symptoms set in, and particularly after I handed in my PhD, they were setting in as I was finishing my PhD. I had to extend by 6 months. And then it was when I handed in my PhD that I crashed. And then the next year, that was when I descended into the hardest time of my life, when I ended up in the wheelchair. And it wasn't just the physical symptoms, it was the cognitive. I couldn't hold a conversation.
The brain fog made things impossible.
I couldn't hold a conversation, could I?
You were very severely debilitated. I mean, it was a terrible, terrible time. There was my daughter just crashing in front of my very eyes.
So anyway, that was how it all began, and then you witnessed me, obviously, when I was at my worst.
You had to use the wheelchair. There was no two ways about it. So, I mean, from a physical point of view, you were in a very, very poor state. You could tell by looking at your face just went grey when the fatigue set in. And I mean, I suspect you've talked about fatigue already, but I mean, to call this thing fatigue isn't correct. It's quite clear that fatigue is a very loose term for something that's a great deal more severe.
Yeah.
I could just watch the colour drain from your face, and you would just basically collapse within. The irony of MS is that you don't have the outward signs.
Yeah.
This is what everybody realises, but that is one of the outward signs if you know what you're looking for. And here I had a daughter in a wheelchair with a grey face, unable to maintain the conversations were in very short sentences because they had to be.
I couldn't remember how the conversation started.
That's right.
I would lose my way after a few, and I used to be multilingual. I was doing a PhD. I was always been a real chatterbox. I was just a different person, wasn't I?
But, completely. I mean, it was like losing you as a person.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad.
Yeah. And the worst thing, the absolute worst thing was, the prognosis was, this is the best it's going to be.
Yeah.
This was like, you wake up feeling like you've been hit by a truck every single day, and it doesn't get better. It's every single day, and then the next day, and then the next day, and it's the same. And you don't know that you're ever going to get better. Like, no one ever tells you this is going to clear up. All they tell you is you have to learn to live with this, and there's no medication we can give you for these symptoms.
Well, I think what I've learned from this as a parent and as a doctor is that if you have an accident, or indeed if childbirth or something like that, something that's got a finite end, recovery, delivery of a child, whatever it should be, symptoms, very severe symptoms, are tolerable. But when you've got an open-ended, unknown prognosis, which can only be downhill, you're in a situation of hopelessness and helplessness. And that makes any symptom 10 times worse. And doesn't make it seem 10 times worse. It makes it 10 times worse.
Yeah. And you have to have support.
Yeah.
And I had limited support, didn't I? Most of my support network vanished.
Yeah.
So I felt that made it worse.
Through people's failure to understand, I think.
Or care.
One or the other.
That's how it felt to me.
I choose to believe, understand.
Yeah, but they could try and understand. anyway,
Yeah.
let's not
Anyway,
go back there.
we shouldn't.
Bad times. So the whole point of this video is the miraculous recovery that I have experienced. So Dad actually hasn't been out to visit for quite some time. He obviously knew, he's been watching my videos and he knew about the carnivore diet from that. And I've obviously mentioned it. But what's your impression on seeing me now?
Well,
You haven't seen me since I started the diet, have you?
No, I mean, this is the first time I've laid eyes on you since you started the diet. And so, with the exception of the videos, of course, which
Yeah.
have given me a lead into this, I'm in a pretty good position to compare before with afterwards. And
Yeah.
the switch around is absolutely astonishing, it really is. You seem largely restored to your old self.
Yeah.
I mean, what's not to like about that? It's physical, it's mental, it's in terms of your joie de vivre, it's in terms of your enthusiasm. You're now writing again.
Yeah.
You're skipping around the place. Sometimes, yeah, giving me a run for my money some of the time. From time to time, I think, I mean, we've had a very stressful week.
We have.
Both
Logistically.
yeah, in terms of miles driven and decisions made and things like that, and I think I can see that has taken a toll. But if I try to project that onto how you would have been 5 years ago,
I wouldn't have been able to handle it.
it would be out of the question.
Yeah, it would have been.
Whereas now you can handle it.
Yeah, it's just stressful, normal life.
Yeah.
And which impacts everybody. Everybody gets impacted by stress and gets tired by lots of energy and activity. Before, I wouldn't have been able to embark on those activities in the first place.
No, that's right.
I just wouldn't have been any use.
No.
I would have just, anyway,
You've
yeah.
got your uses back.
I'm useful again.
You're useful again.
Yeah. So it really is an astonishing
Well,
change.
yeah, and I guess, I mean, here's our old friend, the medical profession. What do they offer in the first place? A lousy prognosis, a whole heap of injections that were hideous,
Yeah.
hideous beyond belief,
Yeah.
without any guarantee that it was going to make the slightest difference whatsoever.
That's right, and you don't know if they have, because the disease course is individual to the person. So
And
you
this-
don't know if they did help you in your case.
This is where it becomes so difficult because, I mean, as a general practitioner, a family doctor, my interest, I take account of statistics, I've got to, they call it evidence-based medicine, but you will always return to the individual. The individual is at the centre of your treatment and your progress through the disease. And the statistics that you were given on the injections really were not very reassuring, but they seemed to be positive, so you go along with it. But looking at the human being connected to those statistics, you were suffering more from the injections than you were from the condition itself.
I mean, it was a toss-up. The injections weren't helping me with my physical condition.
No.
They were just adding an extra trauma of the skin site reactions.
Which is still
and
there.
I've still got dents in my hips, and the pain of the substance. It would burn inside me for like an hour. It was every day, and it wasn't a treatment for my symptoms.
No.
It was something like offering up to a 15 or 30% reduction in the progression of the disease in the long run.
Yeah.
That was it. Like it was like, you're doing this now to maybe slow down the progression of the disease, but you'll never know if it did.
Which sounds statistically sound.
No, it doesn't. I remember you saying at the time.
It doesn't sound statistically sound.
No, you were like, oh, maybe if it was 70%.
Exactly right. Yeah, that's right. I mean, if it really were patently obvious that you're going to benefit from this, then go for it.
Yeah.
It was not patently obvious. You're absolutely right. We're talking a 30% chance of improvement.
Up to a 30%.
Given the morbidity associated with the treatment itself, it was a very, very bad deal. And you stuck with it bravely for a long, long time.
year.
In the end, you gave up.
Yeah, without consulting with anybody. I just didn't do it one day.
Yeah.
I was like, I'll just have a day off. And then I was like, oh, I'll just have a week off. And I never
And
went
another
back.
lifetime off.
Yeah, I didn't ever go back. But stopping the medication was my first step towards taking my health into my own hands.
Yes.
Were you concerned when I did that? When I started going my own way and moved up a mountain?
No. I didn't think that moving up a mountain was a terribly brilliant idea if disability was looming. However, you sold me on the idea when you said how much better you felt in that physical environment.
Yeah.
You moved into that physical environment and you improved a lot. You didn't improve this much, but
No.
you did improve. There's
I
no two
did.
ways about
Yeah,
it.
I did.
I mean, the wheelchair became history.
Yeah.
The stick was only used when climbing a mountain.
Well, when I first arrived, because the thing about the stick is that it reduces, it's not that I couldn't walk without the stick, is that it reduces the impact on your body later.
Yeah, yeah.
So if I had a heavy day, I would sometimes use it, but only when I first arrived in Spain.
Yeah.
And then the stick, I still use the stick to go up.
I know you do, yeah. But anybody would, MS or not.
Yeah,
You know, I mean, that wasn't a hill; it was a mountain.
true. Yeah. No, I needed it on the mountain, but my actual disability stick I did sometimes use when I went into the city.
Yeah.
But I was embarrassed about it on the one hand, and also I just started to get my stamina back from walking up the mountain and being in the purer environment and reducing stress, because all the environmental things you can control, I did control, and it helped.
I think so. I think at that stage you impressed me by how much taking proper care of yourself can actually influence a serious disease.
Yeah.
It sounds like common sense, but what's wrong with common sense?
Well, when you're in a situation like that, I didn't at the beginning, but I started to. I don't know what changed in me. It was anyway. Yeah,
It was taking command of the situation.
Yeah.
That was the first thing that changed.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy.
I hit rock bottom.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you were given advice by well-meaning, reasonably well-informed people. But there is an old aphorism in medicine. It's very easy to be brave with somebody else's pain, which is what they were doing, and it was not working. And you were being robbed of your
Life.
of your authority to make your own decisions, and that is massively important.
Yeah. When I first moved to Spain, I didn't even register with the doctor. Throughout the whole pandemic, because I arrived just before the pandemic, did you know that? I wasn't registered at a doctor.
You never told me that.
I wasn't. I just didn't want anything to do with anything about the health system. I needed to get away from it.
Yeah.
And I just hid up the mountain throughout the pandemic for a whole year. And I eventually had a relapse of fatigue that scared me. And I went down to the doctor and I registered, and then they referred me to the neurologist.
Yeah.
And that's when the neurologist, who you have met,
Yeah.
started pressing me to take drugs again. And I'd had a break from them, and I'd seen some improvement, and then like hell was I going to go back on pharmaceuticals. But you initially supported that, but then you were persuaded by the neurologist. Do you remember?
Yes, between the devil and the deep blue sea there, I've fully respected everything that you'd done. I wanted you to maintain your independence. He was offering what he felt was his best advice. You doubted the validity of his advice. You doubt not his own personal motives, but the motives behind the whole machine.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
And I doubted. He was trying to push chemotherapy onto me in tablet form.
I was terrified of that.
Me too.
Really terrified of that.
I didn't want that at all. I took it. He gave me. I didn't take it. I took it
Didn't
home.
take it, that's right.
I had it sitting at home, and I couldn't take those tablets. Nothing in me would allow me to take the tablets. I couldn't do it.
I mean, some of the therapies on offer actually threaten your life.
Yeah.
Which again,
Yeah.
I'm her father. I'm not going to take that very, very happily. You just had to make your own decision. Whatever decision was made, you had to make it, and you had to feel happy with it because it's your body.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so you had to be happy with it. And you had some spirited discussions, shall we say, with your doctor. I was there for one of them, and it certainly was spirited, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, he and I think we liked each other as people.
I like him as yeah. This again comes down to the individual, doesn't it? I mean, you could say, medical specialists are an unpleasant breed, but then you meet one and they turn out to be quite nice.
Well, I mean, he offended me at the end. My neurologist rant was against him.
Yeah, I know.
You know, he was offensive by the end. I didn't like his attitude, but I think he was increasingly frustrated.
I was going to say exasperated. Yeah.
Exasperated that not only was I refusing his medication, but I wasn't ill. I think that frustrated him more.
Paradoxically, to his
It went against
disappointment.
He almost wanted me to be ill.
Yeah, to show you he was right.
Yeah.
He's not a nasty person. Nobody would actually wish that, but that's the feeling that you come away with, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Why aren't you ill?
Yeah, definitely.
Because you're not doing as I tell you.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. I respect the guy very, very much actually. But I respect your independence the more.
Yeah. Well, I should hope so. I should hope so. So what do you think about the carnivore diet?
Well, I'm astonished. I mean, I've seen, I've seen the carnivore diet, and it flies in the face of all the textbooks and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, looking at your turnaround here, seems to be working. Seems to be working very well.
Yeah, and and quickly.
Quickly, yeah.
And you said, I remember one of the first conversations we had about it, you actually said that you never believed that cholesterol was bad.
I've never had a downer on cholesterol. The body manufactures the stuff for a good reason. And again, extrapolation is a very, very dangerous thing. You can look at people with familial hypercholesterolemia, which means you've got a massively elevated cholesterol level, and that is really, really dangerous. So that there's no question. But that doesn't equate to the individual, the bog standard individual who doesn't have a pathology like that. Equally, you can look at the statistics, but again, the link between the statistics of a whole population and the actual experience of the individual sitting in front of you are two different things, and you have to recognise that.
And do you think that it's possibly true, my theory that, or the theory that in the case of demyelination, it's particularly helpful because myelin's made of cholesterol, partly?
You've kind of convinced me. You may say this is anecdotal evidence because this is evidence based on one person. The one person in whom I have seen this, because I don't know about it. I mean, there are plenty of people out there who have also got similar testimonies.
That's it. I'm not the only one.
Yeah, you're not the only one. Of course you're not. I mean, you only have to look on, on the internet, and you're going to see it.
Yeah.
But my personal impression of what has happened to you is it's been absolutely astonishing. And my advice is keep with it. Keep with it. It may not appear to be an appropriate diet, but for you, so far it's been miraculous.
I'm glad you used that word. Miraculous, because that's not what we're led to believe.
What's a miracle? A miracle is when something surprising that is very good happens. That is what has happened.
Yeah.
So keep it up. Keep it up. I mean,
Are you worried that I'm going to have a heart attack?
I'm not worried about that. No.
Why not?
I don't myself think that you're increasing your individual risk of a heart attack very much. There may be. The statisticians may be able to point to a rise, but as I said to you before, statistics and individuals are two different things. And I don't personally think that you're leading yourself into a heart attack. No, I don't. No.
Can you give a scientific justification for that?
That's a hard one, because if you were to look at the statistics, it could be argued that you are. But I don't personally think you are. I think personally you're improving your health massively. You only have to look at the increase in activity that you're now capable of as a result of this diet. And I would have said, as an individual doctor, talking to an individual patient, that outweighs any deleterious effect from the diet, I would say. Equally, you're taking other steps within your life alongside this, all of which really strongly promote your physical and mental health. Keep it up.
Which gives me my life back.
What's not to like about that?
Yeah, especially when you've had it taken away. You don't take that for granted. So do you want to summarise from personal and professional level what you think has happened here, or what you think?
I can try. I mean, it's hard to be put on the spot like that when, you know...
In front of YouTube.
I'm worried about YouTube. What I'm worried about is that I've been out of medical practice now for some years.
Yeah, you retired some time ago.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I still retain the knowledge, I guess, I suppose. But equally, I'm also talking as your father, so it's a slightly special case. But I can only reiterate that by the simple expedient here of having modified your diet, you've made a massive improvement. That massive improvement has got knock-on effects, both mentally and physically. It's as if you've ignited an improvement on both of those two fronts. And I would carry on. I've got not the slightest concern about the diet that you're on at the moment.
Do you think that I'm cured?
I think it's impossible to say that. it feels that way, I would hesitate to say that you're cured. It's a hard question to be faced with, because obviously I ideally want you to be cured. It depends what you mean by cure. I mean, cure has got many different meanings. You know?
That I will never have a nerve failure or symptoms of MS again.
Answer is I don't know.
Well, no, I can't say that either, can I?
No.
But
All
I do not live in fear of an MS attack.
No.
It just isn't in my mind.
I think that's right, and I think I can echo that one, because I did in the initial stages. I was just waiting for the phone call. Dad, it's happening again. Dad, it's happening again.
Yeah.
You know, it was a sword of Damocles that was hanging there. You don't want to talk, presumptively, but that's not how I feel now.
Yeah. What a crazy 10 years it's been.
It's been trying. It's been very trying. I wouldn't wish it upon anybody,
No.
to be quite honest.
No.
It's taught me a huge amount. I mean, in a sense, it's a pity that this happened during my retirement rather than during my medical practice, because this would have improved my medical practice.
Would you put more stock in patient testimonies based on this experience?
Well, yes. I mean, I'd like to think that I mean, I've always been a generalist. I've always been a family practitioner. So I imagine I probably did anyway. But if you're back to aphorisms again, and it's a good one, they say that if you want to know what's wrong with the patient, if you sit and listen to them for long enough, they will tell you.
Yeah. Or what's right.
Or what's right.
In my case.
Even.
Well, in my case, that's what it is.
You just could be right.
Yeah. Well, thank you. This has been very, very good of you to sit in front of YouTube and
Not at all.
give your
Not at all.
thoughts.
It's got me out of chopping logs.
Yeah. We need to get back to it now.
We could talk for longer.
Well, there you go. Talk with my dad, who is a doctor. I just thought it was a good opportunity to have a discussion on a personal and a professional level. I don't know how to wrap it up.
No, Shall I sing a song?
Yeah, do that.
No, I won't sing a song.
Kumbaya.
The end, okay? The end.
Okay, the end. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Say bye.
Bye.
Bye.